Hey friends, how's it going? Gonna jump and change gears today. Want to start another project on the channel. I'm still puttering with the 590. I'll have to do an update video on that. We have some more issues with it, friends. I'll make a full video on that. I don't have much to report other than I have more issues with that saw. But when we have a chance and I can actually run the thing, I'll make an update video. In the meantime, I want to kind of dig into this power saw here. This is not my saw. This is Fab Willie's saw. Fab Willie's a buddy of mine. I've known him since high school. This was a saw that he has, and it was sitting on the shelf at his place. And I was over there quite a while ago. I've had this saw for far too long, so I'd like to start puttering with it. We were looking at this saw, and I said, do you want me to go through it when I have time? And he said, sure, that would be great. So, for those of you that don't know, this is a Stihl 038 Magnum. This is the saw that Stihl made before the 044 came out. Okay, this is a short stroke overbore saw. This is a long stroke smaller bore saw. This has a 50 millimeter bore. And what is it, 34 millimeter stroke? This has a 52 millimeter bore, 32 millimeter stroke. Or is it 36 millimeter on this and 34 on that? Whatever. It's something, friends. But this has a longer stroke. These make more power. They're lighter, quite a bit lighter, a little bit more compact. And you guys know, any of you that have run an 044 know that these things are incredible. This one is completely stock, not ported. And I love this saw. Now, put this back here. I used to have one of these. This was my first big power saw. I bought a 038 Magnum from a local fella. He ran through it. And I love that saw. I kind of wish I didn't sell it, but I was at a different time in my power saw journey. And when I got that 044, a guy needed a bigger saw, and I ended up selling him my 038. So these saws are really torquey. They pull a long bar quite well in big wood, and they're nice saws. They are a little bit heavy. They're old school. They have the gear drive oiler, and they're nice though. Same bore and stroke as a Husqvarna 272. I think there's a reason why Husqvarna went the way they did with the 272. It was to try and keep up with this saw. And by the time the 272 came out, it was competing against the 044. I think an 044 is a better saw than a 272. They make better power. Nothing wrong with the 272, but I think the 044 outmatched it. Anyways, friends, I want to start working on this saw. I don't know what the deal is with it. The fuel tank smells like the most rancid gas I've ever smelt in my life. When I brought this thing home, it absolutely stank. I could smell rancid gas in my shop. I didn't know where it was coming from, and it was coming from this saw. So the first thing I'm going to do, friends, I'm going to take this thing and dump the fuel out, and then we'll work on it. Just give me a minute here. Friends, I don't know if you've ever smelled this, but whoo! Oh, I hate that. I keep going back for more, but oh, whoo! I'll just fan it over to you guys. Oh, I hate that smell. That's horrible. Okay, I gotta dump that. I just thought we could all enjoy it together as power saw builders. You guys know that smell. Okay, friends, well, when I went to dump the fuel out, the fuel filter came with it, so that's not a good sign. Need to get me a parts bin. Just give me a second here. One of these here things. I use these totes, they're stackable. No, I don't know how far we're going into this today, but it's been a long time since the Stihls been on this channel. Not that I dislike Stihls. Yeah, not that there's not a lot of Stihls like around here. There's a lot of Stihls. I find Stihls around here are very spendy secondhand. And so I don't mess with them a ton. Nothing wrong though. Nothing wrong with a good Stihl. Stihl makes a good power saw. Okay, let's take the side cover off. Oh, I'm getting the hiccups here. I'm so excited. This saw is in incredible shape. Look at that. Like, there's no paint missing on the side cover. This is a nice saw. I'm gonna make this thing run nice. I don't know if we're gonna port this or what we're gonna do. I gotta ask Fab Willie what he wants. You guys know what I want to do to it. I want to port it. I ordered parts to do the bottom end on this thing, and I ordered gaskets and seals and bearings from Wolf Creek, and they'll be here this week. I don't know if I'm going to need them, but I just thought there's enough of these kicking around. That gas just reeks. Even look at the bottom of this thing. It still has some paint on it, so. Now, friend, I don't know what the piston and cylinder looks like on this saw. I'm going to bring it in close. Look at that muffler mod. Now, at least they put two big holes where the bolts go through. I'm guessing the bottom bolts aren't in there. So, we're going to have to pipe this or do something. All I want to do today is do a basic inspection of this saw so we know what we got. Let's see if I can get it the bolts. They are in here. You gotta squint just right. See if I can get it in there with the old T27 Torx. There we go. I was looking at this thing going, how do you get this muffler off? Well, the muffler was loose, so I don't know what somebody did. I don't know where this saw come from when it ran last. Judging by that gas, it's been a decade. That gas was bright yellow, an odd color. So I don't know. I don't even know if it had oil in it. It didn't look like it had any kind of oil that I've ever seen. Oil typically isn't that color, but now hopefully I can get this bolt out. I don't want to have to grind this cover off. We'll probably just build a little pipe for this saw or something, depending on what they want, though, right? Fab Willie's a firewood cutter, so he might just want a stock muffler with a spark arrestor in it, and I'm good with that. Pipes are not always ideal in all situations, so when you guys see me cutting, I'm always cutting on private land, so it's a little bit different. But if you're cutting on public land, sometimes you gotta have a spark arrestor. So it's not really dry here either, so geez, let's see if we can get this off. There we go. This is quite the muffler mod. I've never seen anything like this. It's like somebody lost the front cover or something and decided just to put this plate on here and tack weld it on, which I guess is better than running it wide open. Let's do a piston inspection on this. Now this saw has all kinds of compression, so well, that one fell out. Oh, okay. We'll get those out of there. I have a magnet. Okay. Oh wow. Well, maybe I ordered a top end for this, and wow. From what I see here, this saw don't need a top end. See if we can get you guys in here. There we go. Look at that. That is a nice piston with a big hunk. Oh, friends, we have flies living in there. You guys see those flies? They're in there for the winter, I guess. I don't know. That's the first time I've ever pulled a muffler off and had flies in there. Oh yeah, they're sleeping. Weird. Never seen that before. Yeah. They're dormant. Weird. So this cylinder has some carbon in it. Piston doesn't look bad. It's just at the point. I see a little bit. Well, we'll see. I might take the top end off this, friends, just to have a look. I'll fire up the scope and show you guys what I'm seeing. This is just you get a power saw and you want to inspect it kind of deal. Okay, so you guys could see there, or I hope you saw, with the scope, there's some marks on this cylinder, and who knows, I mean, we may have to replace it. It looks like it's a little scored on the intake side. I wouldn't be surprised. These air filters aren't the best. I'm going to take the spark plug out. Maybe take the top cover off. Let's take the top cover off and see what we can find. I want to see if this thing has spark, first of all. And it wouldn't be much to pop the top end off on this saw. I have worked on these before. Like I said, I used to own one. This should have a Bing carburetor on it. Let's take that off. Right here. Oh. Wow. A gorilla put this on. Oh, jeez. These are funny. I'll show you guys something. My buddy has a couple of these that he runs as part of his tree service, and he's saying he has troubles with them starting cold. Well, I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys the deal with that. Let's see if I can get this off. There. So if you guys have this series of saw, okay. Oh, there's your choke. Okay. The choke lever pulls on that and closes it against right here. Okay, there's the inside where it goes against the carburetor. The aftermarket ones don't really seal well, or they don't grab properly. Okay, I'll put this back together. Okay, you guys see that? Okay, so you really got to make sure. See if we can get it in here. You really got to make sure that this little tab here is hitting, or doesn't, you won't get proper choke. Oh, so this has no nuts on the carburetor. That could be a problem. This saw should have a nut here and a nut there, I believe. Most Stihls have that arrangement. So now I got to start thinking, was this thing run with a loose carburetor? And the fuel line is actually not bad on this thing. I'm surprised. Let's see if we can get this carburetor out of here. Let's pull this whole deal off. And this has the Bing carb. That's one way to know if you have an 038 mag. There's an 038, which is 60 cc's. There's an 038 AV Super, and there's an 038 mag. The mag has the Bing carburetor. At least everyone I've worked on does. Okay, pull this linkage off. Just showing you guys what I know. Okay. Bing! We got it off. There you go. It's a Bing carb. Big old carb on these. Big old carb. Oh. So yeah, somebody's been monkeying around with this saw. Look. Wow, friends. That. Look. That's trouble. That screw comes out, guess where it goes? Right into the motor. And this is on the intake side of the carb too. There we go. Just want to tighten that down. Okay. You guys see that? If I would have started this saw right now, guaranteed that screw would have gone through the motor and this thing would have blown up. And then I really would have had to fix it. Okay, there you go. There's your Bing carb. Still marked on the bottom. I have carb kits for these in stock, so I bought a whole pile of Bing carb kits years ago when I had my 038. Let's take the top cover off this. I don't know what we're going to do with this. It'd be interesting to port this. This is similar. Let's see if I got the right wrench out here. This is similar to I'll grab one from here. To a 272, the bore and stroke. It's a short stroke overbore saw. definitely have different requirements for porting. If you are going to port one of these, you kind of gotta, you really can't wring their neck exhaust roof wise, or they lose a lot of pull. I've made that mistake in the past. Now often this bolt will not come out, and it will this time. Okay, top cover. It's funny, this is a nice clean saw. It's not overly dirty underneath there. Top of the cylinder looks good. I wonder if this thing has spark. It's got a Bosch spark plug in it. Let's see what kind of spark this thing has. I'm just puttering right now, friends. We know we have spark, we have compression. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look down here and look at the intake side. So yeah, the piston is showing me signs that it's a little bit scored up. It's not horrible. It doesn't look overly worn though. So I'll get the scope out again and show you guys the intake side. I like showing this kind of stuff. But so tentatively, oh, this fuel line's not even bad. I'm surprised. Normally these fuel lines are dried up and cracked. So that's a good deal there. But I'll show you guys what that intake looks like. Then we can talk about this here machine. Okay, so there's a shot of the intake. You notice this thing has rub marks. It's eaten fines. Not the worst thing. I'm inclined to take this top end off just to have a look-see. I'm going to have a look on the top of the piston and see how much carbon's in there. If it's really carboned up, we're going to pop this off right now. This thing's eating a lot of fines, so right there's I think this thing was run with no nuts on the carb. I don't think there's any Stihl stills that don't have those 8mm nuts on the carb, and I probably have some here somewhere if I have a look. So let's have a look at the top of the piston. Okay, well, you guys could see there, definitely some carbon buildup on top. It's not horrible. I mean, I could just run this saw the way it is, or I could tear it down. It is what it is. Let's see how easily we can get this intake off. We'll pop this little ring out here. Let's have a look-see. I've never been into one of these on the channel. I'll pop this ring out here. I've never been into one of these on the channel. It'll be good to show. Let's see what we got here. Oh, you can just smell the rancid gas. I kind of want to pull this thing down. Just have a look-see. Okay, you want to be real gentle when you're popping off these intakes. Just kind of peel it around. I'm going to leave the intake attached to the cylinder. Okay, let's pop the cylinder off. I want to have a better look. I'm not sure what I'm seeing here. So, it's for my buddy. I don't mind rebuilding the saw for him. I ordered all the parts to rebuild it. So I got new crank seals, bearings. If we got to do a total rebuild, which is probably where I'm going to go on this saw, I could have a better look at the bottom end once we open her up, and then go from there. It's nothing. It's really nothing to do, you know, to pop this thing apart and go through it. If you don't go through it, it might only run for a little while, and then, you know, I mean, you figure this saw, this is an old saw, early 90s, I believe. Like to keep these vintage saws running, and the best way to do it a lot of times is to just, let's see what we got here. Oh, my intake popped back through. Okay, I'm just going to stick my finger in there and roll it through. That way I can inspect the intake. I really don't see any damage to this saw. It just, it needs some love. Okay, pop these off. Okay, here's our intake. Notice how Stihl puts those ribs in there. Same as a rough intake porting. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Keeps the fuel in suspension is the idea. Neat that Stihl actually does that to their intakes. And there you go, factory. A lot of us porters grind this into the intakes. Well, this saw had it stock. So, interesting, isn't it? Now, this has an offset intake port. You guys can see that. I would be inclined to do some shaping in here if I was going to port this. There's your transfers. Nice, big, wide transfer windows in this saw. And upper transfers, they're swept slightly up at the front towards the intake. And a really wide, shallow exhaust port. I don't know where this saw times at. I've never put a wheel on one of these. I'm guessing the exhaust is probably somewhere around 102. Yeah, so this piston's pretty scored up. I'll wipe it down for you guys here. Yeah, I'm glad I took this apart. I wouldn't send this out the door like this. Not for, you know, for all the time it's going to take. Okay, so here's our piston. See if we can get you guys in a little closer here. Notice, there we go. Notice the wear here on the skirt, okay? This is why if you're gonna machine your piston to make it shorter, if you want it lighter, or to get a little more intake timing, be aware, this is what happens. The other thing is, if you have a wide exhaust port, right? Think your piston is supported like this stock, okay? The more wide you make the exhaust port, or the wider, you're putting more force on less area. That creates wear. Now, if you know, if that doesn't bother you, then, you know, I like to show you guys what I know. Okay, this piston skirt is starting to get thin here. Now let's look at the other side. Here's the intake side. This thing's eating a ton of fines. I can feel those across my finger. This piston is all scored up, and so are the rings. See the discoloration in the rings? Okay, so I'm going to rebuild this saw. It needs to be done, and I'll do it. It's for a buddy. Bottom end looks absolutely like brand new. Look at the bottom end of this saw. This saw has no time on it. I guarantee that. Pretty neat. So I don't know how the bearings are in this saw. They feel smooth as glass. I might not even have to do the bottom end in this saw. I'm kind of inclined not to at this point. I did get seals. Let's see if we can. That's the original gasket, I guarantee that. So, okay, friends. Well, I guess the last thing is, let's pop this carburetor open and have a look. And then we'll kind of go over what I found. I like to show this stuff. This is the meat and potatoes. If you want to work on power saws, this is the stuff you're going to find yourself doing. Okay, here's our Bing carburetor. Let's just pop her off. I'll zoom you guys right in. I know you guys like to see this stuff, and I like to show it. I wasn't born working on power saws. People showed me stuff, so if I can show you guys, I'm going to do it every time. And I'm going to drop screwdrivers 9 out of 10 times, so if you like a man that fumbles and drops things, this is the channel for you. We got a puppy, friends, and she's a little nippy on the old hand skis. I'll have to do a little video with her and pop it in at some point. Miss Daisy. Miss Daisy, the wonder dog, the official dog of Tin Man Saws. Okay, well, that doesn't look horrible. Notice, see that? See how that's bent down? It's not flat. So this thing wouldn't have run, I guarantee that. Those have to cover the holes in the carburetor. Screen is pretty clean. Could be better, could be worse. I have a feeling this thing was parked and not run, and that rancid gas has just been sitting in there forever. Have to blow a little air through her. There we go. Let's take this top off. These usually have a plastic metering lever in them. This is the only carb that I'm aware of that has that. We'll see if this one has one. Haven't been into a Bing carb in years. These 038s make good power. I was happy with mine. It's just a little heavier than an 044. Like I said, I would have kept mine, but I was at a different time in my power saw journey, and I ended up selling it. I kind of regret it. It was a nice saw. I'm going to pop that off. Look at that. Toast. Okay, so again, this saw would not have run. There's no way. I'll pull this diaphragm off so you guys can see how that's all swollen. It's hard as a rock. So, see that? This is the only carb I'm aware of that has that plastic metering lever. Kind of interesting. So, okay, friends. So, I see nothing terrible about this carb. It is clean. Like, look at that. So, I would say this carb's going to run. That scared me. I'm not sure why that was so loose. We fixed that. That screw is on the engine side. That can go right through and into the motor. So if you're fumbling around with one of these carbs and you take that off, make sure you tighten that down, because if you don't, yeesh, that'll be the end of your top end and possibly your bearings. So there you go, the good old Bing carburetor. Okay, friends, so just an overview. This is an unknown saw. I don't know what's been done to it. I noticed some things look like they've been monkeyed with, so instead of trying to fire it up, I decided to go through the saw, and I'm glad I did. That loose screw on the butterfly and the carb, that would have went through the motor if I fired this up. Or the butterfly would have slid and got stuck open, and we would have had a runaway saw. Either way, not good. So, an overview. This saw needs a fuel filter. The fuel line seems okay. Intake boot is pliable. You want to check all the rubber parts on a saw that's been sitting. Like, I can still smell the rancid gas. So you want to make sure all these rubber parts aren't hard as a rock. Did the piston inspection. We did find some scoring on the intake side and on the rings. So right there, this saw is a good candidate for a rebuild. Cylinder seems okay. I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse it. I will clean it up a bit and see what it looks like. If not, I ordered a highway cylinder for this saw and a highway piston from Wolf Creek Saw Shop, and we'll compare them both and see what's what. I don't know if this saw is going to need crank seals, but again, we can always pop new crank seals in it as we go through it. I did order them, and bottom end seems okay. So I'm not sure if we're going to port this saw, but we'll find out. The customer is always right, and the customer is my buddy in this case. So I'll ask him what he wants me to do with it. And I don't know what we're going to do with this muffler. I might order an aftermarket one, and we'll run that. Or I could always maybe try and fab up a modded muffler for this thing, like a pipe. So anyhow, friends, I thought it was about time we had a Stihl on the channel again. So 038 Magnum, a legendary vintage power saw, and I'm super happy to have it on my bench. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy. See you guys in a couple days. Later.